Alrighty, so the second part of this is unit counters. Now I wanted to focus specifically on the three biggest, toughest, dangerous things that you will face out there in StarCraft. First one is Zerg. With Zerg, you're going to need to know how to fight Mutalisks. The way that you fight Mutalisks is pretty easy, because you can pretty much bet Mutalisks are coming at all times. If you suspect that Mutalisks are on their way, then about the time you build, your second or third base, you will want to... I didn't even click it. So it wasn't built yet. Hilarious. The one thing you want to do is start throwing down turrets, obviously. But as soon as you can, get out of Thor. Thor plus missile turrets is the answer to Mutalisks. Nobody using Mutalisks wants to fight a Thor backing up missile turrets. The second thing you need to do is get these towers down as soon as you can, because Thors are really slow units and Mutalisks are really fast. But you'd be surprised, a Mutalisk army coming from here straight to your SCV line is actually incredibly slow compared to the Thor's movement speed. So you gotta just spread them out. Maybe like one Thor here, one or two Thors here, because remember you have tech here. You need tech. Tech is important. And I'm not even really trying to collect minerals. This is so sad. But anyway, I'm not really worried about it. The game is kind of over. In my point of view, I'm just doing things to distract me. Oh, so you got a Thor. You stick them... I should have minerals to explain what a mineral line is. Anyway, you stick them in your mineral line. You can see there were minerals here. And you stick them about here. You put a missile turret here, a missile turret here, and a missile turret here. All of your SCVs are now safe. The Mutalisks will swoop in and try to get pot shots on things. They'll try to take out depots. They'll try to do whatever they can to hurt you. The Thor is the mobile answer to that. You throw in about 6 Marines, 7 Marines, that can take out about 14 Mutalisks, or at least scare them away before they can do any significant damage. So for every base, 1 Thor. I'd say put 1 or 2 Thors in your army anyway, because MMM with Thor support is insanely good. These guys have a lot of attack power, especially on air units. I mean, what's really funny is they prioritize air units, and it usually ticks people off, including me, because they'll always shoot the useless air units. But when you have 2 of these in your army and they kill all of the enemy medevacs with splash damage, that's actually kind of funny, because the fight is instantly in your favor, and you can high-five the AI, which you were cursing out a minute ago. Anywho, so that's Mutalisks, is you get Thors, and I don't recommend battle cruisers versus Zerg anyway, because they have mind control, so they can just Yamato you with your own cannons. So if you do build battle cruisers, bad idea to build the Yamato add-on, which is the fun part. That's why you build the battle cruisers. So not a great capital unit to finish them off with that. Thors are excellent though. They kill roaches, they kill hydras, they kill Mutalisks, they kill a lot. The only thing Thors are not good against is broodlords. Thors are pretty good against ultras too, because ultras have to splash damage cleave, whereas Thors are ranged and can pelt. So you can have 8 Thors versus 1 Ultralisk while the ultras are getting to you, even if it's 8 on 8. And that is pretty unfair. Okay, so Thors, greatest counter to Zerg. More so to Mutalisks than anything else. 2 Thors I recommend to keep with your army or keep on Muta Patrol that are not sitting in your mineral line. I always say 1 in your mineral line. 1 in each mineral line that you're... So, here I wouldn't have 1 here, especially if there's just a few mineral patches left. Move your Thor up to this one where all your units are. 8 or 9 Marines can back up that Thor and protect it from any kind of cheese attack or all-in, kill the Thor, magic box, that kind of stuff. And plus you'll have 2 or 3 missile turrets at each base. Muta problem solved. Alright, so Muta's taken care of. They have map control, but you're Terran, so you don't care. You just turtle up, take a new base whenever you want by moving out a couple of Thors. 2 Thors is enough to pretty much trash any number of Mutalisks en route to someplace, because people don't usually magic box unless they plan to. So when you wander into taking a new base, they're going to have to send the Mutalisks to counter your expansion, which means they have to magic box you along the way. So they have to move, stop, move, stop, move, stop, move, stop. Or else the Mutas are going to bunch up as soon as they have to change direction even slightly. So unless their first click was perfect and they told their Mutalisks to go exactly right here, and they're like, alright, not going to touch it. Or I'm sorry, exactly right here if they're coming from down here, and they magic box your SCVs, they are not going to have time to counter 2 Thors. And 2 volleys from 2 Thors, I believe, is enough to almost or completely kill a Mutalisk. So you can kill mass amounts. I have games where I've killed, 25 mutilisks with 2 Thors and 1 missile turret. Also, a trick you've seen pros do, I do highly recommend it because it does work. Your SCVs are in your mineral line under attack by mutas. The first thing they should do is heal a missile turret. Yes, it turns them into attacking units, which makes the AI extremely easy to blast away at them because the attack move command will kill your SCVs as well as your missile turret. And it'll prioritize the missile turret, so all the bounces will be killing your SCVs. But it will keep the missile turret alive. And live missile turrets can take out so many mutilisks when they're being buffed by so many SCVs. It's like a planetary. When you got a planetary, the strength of the planetary isn't the planetary itself. 3 building defense and 150. Is it 150 or does it go up to 2,000? It's been a while. I think it goes up to 2,000 health when you upgrade it. 2,000 health, 3 armor is not the strength of a planetary fortress. That's not the reason it's suicide to go into a planetary fortress with a ground army. The reason it's suicide is because if there's 26 SCVs sitting at this base and you right-click the planetary fortress, that's pretty much it. They have to kill every SCV in order to damage the fortress, because no amount of damage, almost. I mean, there's, extreme cases. 200 armies versus a planetary isn't a fair fight. But, any kind of little militia sent out to just take out a single base is completely incapable of fighting a planetary fortress with, 26 SCVs healing it. So, that is really good. Stalkers. While we're here, we'll talk about Stalkers. Stalkers, the counter is concussion shells, which is a lot faster to research than Blink, Stim, and Marauder. That's it. A lot of people are confused on what to do because they'll build, MMM versus Stalkers. They'll get taken out. They'll build Siege Tanks. Siege Tanks will kill themselves when they're blinked into. So Terran, it's really hard to find a unit that effectively counters a armored, light, fast, versus armored unit. It's kind of like a really fast Marauder type unit that can teleport. So what do? Well, in Zerg, it's easy. Hydralisks have the same range as Stalkers, so Hydralisks own Stalkers, and vice versa. They get owned by Stalkers, because a Stalker can't take a single shot at a Hydralisk without a Hydralisk taking a single shot. The Marauders are pretty much the same way, except for you have Stim, so you have to actually move into your enemies. But the concussive shell slows down their any formation they're forming, and Stim speeds up yours. So when you're, this is a bad example because of the choke, but when you're going in, oh, see now, where's the Stalkers at? Okay, I thought they'd be right there. Ooh, let's go. What was that? Alright, so when you're bringing in your troops, basically you want to, where was I going with this? The Stalkers have a hard time with Marauders. I mean, if you're worried about an air tech switch that early in the game, I don't know, it's kind of silly. No, I do not accept. So, an air tech switch is not a big deal. You need to mass Marauder if they're mass Stalkering. I mean, 1 for 1. They build a stock, well, not 1 for 1, but unit ratio per unit ratio. If they're 100% Stalkers, I want to see you 100% Marauders. Just try it. I know it's not conventional wisdom, but try it and you'll be very impressed. They just roll over Stalkers hardcore. And the Marine support will help, but not as much as if you're just mass Marauder. There's times when it is good to go one massive, amount of units that, usually you want diversity. Diversity is usually king. Not in this case. If the enemy, and you should know, it's not a mystery. You should be like, oh, what is all the Protoss tech? Well, I have enough scans because I haven't been muling constantly. I've been building SCVs instead of muling. I should know how many bases he has, what his tech is, where his hidden tech is, where his army is, what his army is composed of. None of this should be a surprise. Terrans have the biggest advantage in the game because they don't need to worry about, harassment with their overseer and trying to get the the changeling into the enemy army, or sacrificing zerglings, or massive walls, or these giant radius of detection so they can't sneak in mutalisks to map out the area. A mutalisk only army with enough Thors here wouldn't have any idea that I was teching to battlecruisers, or that I was building mass Raven over here in the corner for no reason, because that's hilarious. They just wouldn't know until it's too late. You, on the other hand, cannot be fooled. You have a satellite scan that instantly tells you exactly what you need to know. And so you should be able to build, you know, mass marauder versus stalker, because you know that you can defeat every single stalker. They don't know that one air unit could take out your whole army until it's too late. So that's the story on that. Finally, siege tanks. Now this is probably the trickiest matchup, is Terran versus Terran when you're not going mass siege tanks slow push. The best way to take out siege tanks is probably with either cloaking, which is really annoying, you know, ghosts and nukes and all that stuff, or to just spread out your units and use marauders. Again, marauders, awesome. Another thing you can do is, because you are Terran, you can do fast tech switches. Now when I say fast tech switches, I'm not talking about what people would expect, you know, like, oh, just, you know, build more units, be good at game. No, when I fast tech switch, and we're going to get into this because I'm going to give my strategy here. I've come up with an awesome strategy that works way too much. This is a fast tech switch. What I just did there is a fast tech switch. They have 1 minute and I think it's, what, 20 seconds? 1 minute. I don't remember. I used to know all the build times. They have 1 minute and 20 seconds to know what my tech switch is, because that's how long it takes to build these and put a tech lab on them, I think, if I remember correctly. And then say I want 10 Banshees. So I go for 10 Banshees plus cloak. Now I have the money because I did a couple of these bases, the hidden base trick. So I've got a base here and a base here happily mining away, which can fund all this. So I've got, you know, 8 mules on this base, maybe 2 or 3 mules on this base, 2 geysers, 2 geysers. I can definitely afford this crazy ass tech switch. So I go ahead and do my tech switch, throw it on, bam, 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 bam. Now I have tech labs on the way. SCVs, you can go do whatever. I do recommend putting these in a base, like not just out in the middle of nowhere. A lot of people proxy. I don't approve of proxying. Put it in your base. You should be able to protect all of your tech in the same area. Be aware of nukes and stuff that can then take out mass amounts of tech buildings. But you shouldn't have to worry about defending these and then have to worry about defending, you know, all of your marine barrack production out here, all your tech labs and all that, because you could just fly them. You know, that's another thing. I haven't really tried it, but I suppose you could fly all your buildings to your expansion. You know, if you have a 200 army, why not move all of your buildings out here? Well, it wastes all of the tech labs and engineering bays and all that stuff. But I really can't think of why it would be a bad idea if you had kind of the upper hand late game, if you just wanted to seal the deal. You put all your stuff at your mining base, and that just kind of makes sense to me. So anyway, let's pretend I wasn't just talking completely off topic there. You want to build 10 Banshees, so you build, you know, 2 at each. Go for cloak. That's about the same amount of time. Researching that and getting 10 Banshees is about the same amount of time. So in, what was that? I said it's 120 seconds to do that. Each Banshee takes, I don't know, a minute. So we're up to 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Plus the cloak, I think, takes another 15 seconds after that or something like that. So in 3 minutes and 30 seconds, somewhere on the map, 5 starports just went down and built 10 Banshees. Now these poor unsuspecting tanks, you've been ground game, you know, MMM the whole time. He's been pushing back on you because, you know, he's got tanks, you don't. So you have to keep giving him a little bit of ground here, a little bit of ground there. Your Marauder army comes out every once in a while and snipes the tanks that get out of position. Because, you know, they have insane movement speed. They can be healed, so taking a few hits is not a big deal. You don't have to get an SCV out there. And they're pretty beefy. I mean, you know, 125 means if they're decently split up, like you just have a handful. This, well, not you. You're dead in like 1 or 2 hits. This right here, just stimmed and running out to a tank, could destroy that tank. You might need to spread them a little bit and then just roar. And they will actually kill the tank before it kills all of them. And I mean, that's up to like 2 or 3 siege tanks. So 2 or 3 siege tanks for 6 Marauders, that's a really good trade for resources. That's kind of what the game's all about, I believe. I think it's a good trade. I guess it's not a good mineral trade. But build time trade, it definitely is. The build time on these things is 45, whereas the build time on Marauders is 30, so it's 15 seconds less, and you probably have a lot more barracks, because barracks are cheap and easy to build. So I feel like I can replenish, you know, 10 or 11 Marauders per 2 siege tanks. So if 6 can take them out, that means I've netted time rate, not, you know, not resource-wise, but time-wise, I've netted 5 Marauders while he's rebuilt his 2 tanks. Okay, finally, unit counters. Let's just go through the units real quick and go through the counters. Now, there's tons of stuff posted on this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Light units, Reapers are awesome, Marines are awesome. Heavy units, Marauders are awesome, tanks are awesome. Light units, Hellions are awesome. I highly recommend Blue Flame if you're going to harass. It makes your Hellions pretty much twice as useful. I guess they've nerfed it recently, so not exactly twice anymore. It used to be twice, and that was fun. Thors. Thors are great endgame units and to buff your army. If you have a decent sized MMM army and you bring in Thors, just 2 or 3 Thors, they'll take a ton of damage. They'll also shoot all the air units down so your Marines don't need to get under them. That's the big problem with Marines. They're so squishy. If the air units hang behind the ground units, which is pretty much what everybody does. I mean, imagine these are broodlings. Or broodlords, sorry. If those are broodlords, then the roaches are going to be here, the broodlords are going to be here. Do you really want to send your Marines into roaches? I mean, does that sound like a great idea to you? So you have Thors in the back that are just pelting everything. Now, of course, broodlords are a bad example because you would want Vikings against them, but we'll get to, I guess I'll just go through that real quick. Vikings, amazing against broodlords because they don't fight back, so that's not a good example. But they are amazing against other units, but they are really expensive. I found the Viking to be one of the most confusing units in the game. I don't really know when to use it a lot. It's great to have them en masse because you have an unstoppable air force. You cannot be stopped. And but they cost so much. Their cost is ridiculous. 75 and 150 for a unit that only has, well, I need to build one to see its health, but its health is really low, its armor is really low, it can only fight air or ground, so you might as well just divide its armor in half because it has to land or it has to take off. But I can't not like the unit. It does so much damage. The concussion missiles do enough to actually harm, you know, 6 armor units, which is a pretty huge deal. They do, you know, 14 versus armored. Even with 6 armor on a unit, that's still 8 per volley and it fires 2. So it does 16 damage to a battlecruiser. That is a lot. And the often overlooked assault mode is equally scary. It has an insane attack rate.
Burn and pillage.
I mean, they're so mobile, and one of my favorite harass units, actually. A lot of people use Hellions to harass, and they're fine. But I find against Zerg and a couple others, these are really the ultimate harassment units. They run in, you send in about 4 into an enemy's mineral line, you land them, and they will just gun down drones so quickly with those machine guns. And then as soon as the Zerglings come, you know, early game, they probably have 1 queen and a bunch of Zerglings, you take off and go hunt overlords. So that the harassment just never ends with these things. So they're a really, really good harassment unit. You can easily get your money's worth for them. But in your main army, all I really use them for is giving sight to my tanks and killing broodlords and maybe carriers. I still prefer to do battlecruisers versus carriers because the Yamato is the most hilarious thing ever. Plus, it really distracts battlecruiser. Oh, so I wasn't even watching. So here we are with all these Banshees. I was talking about siege tanks. Yeah, well, the siege tank, problem solved. 10 Banshees in a 3.5 minute phase where they either got lucky with a scan, maybe they saw it coming, but even so, what are they going to do against 10 Banshees when they have like 1 minute to prepare for this? So they've got less than a minute, even if they scanned you, to stop 10 Banshees. You just come in, start picking off the tanks like crazy. Now, of course, you got to be smart about it. Know they have scans if they're Terran, or, you know, keep an eye on where the overseers are. You can't shoot them. If, well, I'm talking about tanks. Why would there be overseers? Anywho, you got to be slightly careful with them, but this has pretty much won the game for me, and it's usually on the way. Like, this is my my battlecruiser strategy. I usually pump out 10 battlecruisers endgame, and I'll get into that in my strategy video. But 5 to 10 Banshees is a hilarious way to just surprise somebody with a throwaway tech. And I think the price of cloak is worth it to throw away this tech. It's what was it, 150, 150? To show up with 10 cloaked Banshees, they are going to do so much to stop your Banshees that is just wasted money, essentially. Because I'm just going to go right back to MMM and then build some battlecruisers. And MMM with 10 battlecruiser support is the end of the game. Battlecruisers are amazing in this game, but I'll get into that in the tech video. So I think that's about all the unit counters. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Ghosts, actually, I guess I could talk about snipe. I don't like casters, so I always forget ghosts exist. You know, the EMPs are amazing against Protoss. I'd say even if you're not fighting Templar, having an EMP or two is well worth it. Fighting, you know, gateway units, just EMP their shields. Most of the units have lost a third to half their health. And your MMM versus that, I mean, this is how I win the completely outmatched games. I have the Marauders in front, Marines in the back, Medivacs behind them, all good unit positioning before the fight even starts. I stim. I have way more Medivacs than this. This army I should have another 3 or 4. So I have way too many Medivacs, so my stim is full health all the time. The enemy units, you know, would lose their shields because I'd go ahead and use the, I'm drawing a blank here. The enemy units would lose their shields from my EMP, or if it's some big unit, I would snipe it, you know, Broodlord, something like that. And so there you have it. There is my Terran tips and tricks guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it was really long, but I really do love this game. I watch casts all the time. This is a really fun game. I wish I was better at it, but, you know, I come up with the strategies. I just don't really enact them very well. But, you know, studying the game mechanics themselves is what really helps. You look at Marauders. They're a cheap unit. They're really low on the tech tree. They have so many uses. They can basically destroy a base. I've actually, this is something else I guess I'm going to throw in for Marauders real quick. Marauders versus Zerg is a big deal. A lot of people underestimate this. You'll see a lot of Marine drops because they're like, oh man, 16 units instantly from 2 Medivacs on a Zerg base. Well, in my opinion, it's quality over quantity. 8 Marauders will do more work than 16 Marines inside a Zerg base and be much more worth it, and you won't really need to pull them out if you don't want to, quite honestly, because Marauders do so much trade damage that even their whole army coming in to deal with 8 of them would be worth it. You'd kill a bunch of Zerglings, you'd kill a bunch of Roaches, so Marauders are just overall a scary unit. You drop 4 Marauders from each Medivac, you stim them, you find a tech structure, and you snipe it. 8 of them can kill a hive in an alarmingly short amount of time. It's something like 15 to 20 seconds. They can kill a hive. And Zerg never double up their buildings. It drives me nuts because when I play as Zerg, I do double up my buildings late game. But that's because I'm always thinking, if I were me, you know, if I were versus me, what would I do to destroy this situation that I have? And that's what I'm always thinking is, okay, so what could destroy what I've done? Well, in that case, if I lost my tech structures, Zerg late game would be it. Then he could just smash his 200 army on me, and while he's training up, I'm teching up, and that's never a good place to be. So I often, late game, when things are about to hit the fan, when the big army clash is coming, I'll load up 8 Marauders into 2 Medivacs, drop them in the corner of the enemy's base, run out and snipe the hive, the infestation pit, the spawning pool, and whatever unit they're using. So Spire for Mutas or Hydralisk Den. And you might think that is a tall order, Chaos. You can't just run in and kill 4 buildings. Well, you can't with Marines, and you're absolutely right. But to me, Marines are not a harassment unit. I mean, you might as well drop 4 Blue Flame Hellions if you want to harass them. That will kill all of their drones much faster and at a much lower cost than the 16 Marines that are probably going to get killed. How often do you see a Medivac get out with 16 Marines? 2 Medivacs getting out of a base after you've messed with it. They have dedicated units. You could drop Vikings in. There are dedicated harassment units that are better at taking out drones. But in my opinion, the best thing you should do is send in your Marauders. So, okay, you could tell I am obsessed with Marauders. I love them. They are a fun unit. I didn't like them at first, but the more I played the game, I was like, these guys are beasts. They just can't be stopped. They roll over buildings. They do extra damage to everything that matters. Anywho, so, yeah, and on top of that, just so you guys know, you can check it out online on the Liquipedia forums. Marauders do double damage when stimmed against armored targets to Marines. That includes buildings. So if you're ever thinking about sniping a building, or in your main army, I put plenty of Marauders in there for the DPS they do. Because say you have a full air army, throw in about 10 Marauders behind your Marine, Marine Thor, and when you get to the actual buildings, you won't have to worry about your slow-ass Marines and Thor fighting down a hatchery. You bring in the Marauders, stim them up, and take down that hatchery in like 3 volleys. So, anyway, give it a try, see what you think. I really think that the reason the pros do what they do and ignore Marauders completely is very simple. They play on a razor's edge. When you're playing in a fully professional game, you're playing on the complete razor's edge, and you want every advantage. And quite honestly, even one Marauder would be a waste of resources in their eyes. So what they do is they try to do the Marauder's job without the Marauder by just clicking really fast and accurate. And if they're able to do that, that's great. But it really doesn't help their fans who are trying to learn how to play the game themselves and trying to figure out what's going on. Try Marauders. They will fill every hole in your defense you've ever played as Terran. I've watched so many people who I'm huge fans of who are good at all the other races. They're great at Protoss. They're great at Zerg. But they cannot play Terran to save their life. They always go Mass Marine or they go Marine Tank. And they wonder, like, okay, it's boring, so I'm not interested because it's Marine Tank. Or it's Mass Marine, and why do people roll me with this and I can't roll them back? Play a real Terran game. Build Marauders. Build Marines. Build build all the units you need to for the given situation. Scan your enemy. Know what he's doing before he knows what you're doing. Counter it. When he shows up with Mass Stalker, you show up with Mass Marauder. I mean, like, Mass Marauder. Everything is Marauders. He will be completely confused how you hard countered him. And it might be a soft counter situation, Marauder versus Stalker, but it's a hard counter in mass, in my opinion. It's a complete hard counter because he doesn't have any units that can't be shot by the Marauder, and the Marauder is cheaper and faster to build than a Stalker. So you're going to have more Marauders than him no matter what he does. So there you go, guys. Enjoy. Have fun with Terran. Terran is a great race. One of the funnest games ever, Starcraft 2. I played for a while, and I'm going to do another video on my super secret awesome Terran strategy. I have tried this strategy a lot. You might have heard me talk about it in some of my other videos. I am 14 and 14, I think, with it, or 14 and 15. I think it's funny because I came up with the strategy when I was such a noob that I actually didn't know what siege tank walls were capable of, and I ran a 200 army into a siege tank wall. And so I was like, note to self. First time that's ever happened, and lost that game. But the strategy, without me screwing up, the strategy has been flawless. I have defeated 14 random people in a row using this strategy. So I'm going to go ahead and publish it online for all you peoples, because I think it's really good. I enjoy doing it. That's the most important part. It is fun. It is making Terran fun again. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be posting it soon. Have a great one, guys.